Hello, everybody. Got some older radios here. Let me just make sure everything's all right. I'll actually do one thing. Here we go. Old radio night. Well, old and new. Depends where you look at. That's new. And that's amazing compared to what these old radios are. Despite repeated calls made by specialists. The Delta variant, which is 30. Here's Radio Romania International on my good old DX100, the first real shortwave radio, should I call it, that I had in my life. Radio Romania 7375 kilohertz. Electricity bills for about 30 million people who have a monthly consumption between 30 and 200 kilowatts per hour. Energy Minister Victor pronounced on Wednesday. He stressed that the measure will not benefit those not bad, still working. Vulnerable consumers, which makes about still there doing shortwave. So, kind of cool. Hey, everybody. Welcome aboard. This is the Shortwave Radio Live Show. And we are here twice a week. Let me just do a little something here. There we go. So I can actually read with my old eyes. So welcome, everybody, and nice to have you on board. It's cool to be back, of course, as usual, and we are going to have some... tonight is kind of a let's go back in time show, okay? So for those of you that are new, you'll be able to see what we did in the past, how it was in the past. We're going to talk about shortwave like we lived it, whatever age and whatever we all started. Some of you started way more, way older than I am. I mean, you know, some of you are like from the 50s shortwave radio scene and the 60s and the 70s. I started in 82. For a lot of you, I'm a young, new listener. Of course, I'm an old fart for a lot of young guys. So we're going to go back in time tonight, okay? And we're going to go back in time with recordings also. I want to look at and have us listen to stuff. I'm actually going to take my earphones and just going to pull on this. You know, when you go, you have a wire. It's like, can I pull on it? It's just this. I think this is going to be good. Pulling on wires is never a good idea. You don't know what's going to happen. So welcome aboard, everybody. And yeah, tonight is a retro show. We're going to go back in time. We're going to talk about what's happening, what was happening back in the days. So we're going to talk about our favorite radio stations. So prepare your answers. I'll have questions for you guys of all sorts of little things from the past. And the first one, since it's going to take time for me to anyways go in the chat room, my first question for everybody is, what was your first radio? Your first radio that you've ever used for shortwave listening, and in a serious way. So to give you an idea, I've had multi-band radios that had shortwave, but I didn't know what it was. So, what I'm going to ask you is not the first radio you played with that you didn't know what you were doing. I'm going to ask you the question is the first real radio that you had shortwave and actually used it and was having a lot of fun with that. So the first one you really dabbled to shortwave and started knowing what you were actually what it was. DX100, what you see here, what you don't see right now, what you see here, this is my first real shortwave radio. So the DX100 was a very popular model from Radio Shack and early to mid 80s, I would say. And one of the reasons it was popular, it was inexpensive compared to a lot of radios. It has its drawbacks. Now today I know that, it's actually a crappy radio. But you know what? Back then, $100 from a teenager from 1980-ish, early 80s that has $100. The radio is $100. It's just like it's an expensive radio. Radios $100. Radios is expensive, and we're in 1982, so it's like probably like having a $200+ receiver today, and you're not even getting the quality you got today, because today for $100 you've got a million times better radio than this is, and that is pretty crazy. So the first radio, whether it's a ham transceiver that you used, whether it's a shortwave radio that you had, what was your first radio? Just share it with everyone. If you want to add a year when you started listening and using it, and I think we're gonna have a lot of fun sharing. And do you remember at least one of the first catches of the first night of listening? So I'm going to start by saying, hey, everybody, welcome aboard. This is the Shortwave Radio Show. We are live from Montreal, Quebec, Canada. This is a show about radio. We usually talk about radio and have fun with radio, shortwave radio, but any kind of radio. There's a lot of stuff for, radio listening. It's still a popular hobby. It's still something that has a lot to offer. It's different. And tonight we're going to see how different it is, because we're going to go back in time, hear voices, hear things that we haven't heard probably in a long time. But it's going to be a lot of fun. And I think this is cool. So we are here twice a week. My name is Gilles, located in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, northeast part of North America. We're here on Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern. That's 0 hours Universal Time. Thursday for the rest of the world, pretty much. And Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern. That's 20 hours Universal Time. And this show, somebody asked me this week and says, your shows are 3 hours? Well, actually, they have no time limit, which means technically, if I had nothing to talk about, it could be an hour. I'm a blabbermouth. They rarely go below 2 hours. And 3 hours is I try to focus on the 3 hour show. It's not always easy. There are times when, after an hour and a half, 2 hours, you're like, you know what, I think it's enough. But we've had the record breaking show, I think, is 5 hours and 30 minutes. So that's a lot of talking and a lot of sharing. So anyways, we're going to go back in time tonight, because we're going to talk about what it was in the past, and we'll have audio clips of all sorts. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And I wish. Okay, let me just finish the introduction, because I always go everywhere. Anyways, for those that want to join, if you have a Gmail account, you can join the chat room, which is a very nice place with a lot of cool people that just want to talk radio. And you're a beginner in our hobby. Don't let people tell you there's nothing today. It's boring. It's not. There's still so much to listen to. I'm editor of the utility columns. There's one aspect of the hobby, listening to marine signals, digital signals of all sorts, aeronautical communications, because yes, airplanes over the Atlantic Ocean and Pacific Ocean and so on still use a lot of HF to actually communicate with air traffic control. There's all sorts of weird things. There's pirate radio stuff out there. There's these weird signals that you're trying to identify. There's still, and quite a lot of them, of number stations from different agencies and spy agencies from the world. Why? Because shortwave is easy to send something and have no trace of whoever is receiving it at a certain area around the world. And of course, international broadcasts. Yes, there's less of them, but there's still a lot of them. Today I listened to Radio Prague, English and French. I listened to Radio Romania. I listened to Voice of Turkey before the show. I actually heard RAE Argentina via WRMI French that just ended as the show started. Radio Slovakia, Radio Tirana, Albania. Voice of America has extensive broadcasts and a lot of frequencies. BBC World Service, a lot of stuff. A lot of frequencies. Once again, you just need to find the correct one. KBS World Radio South Korea, Radio Thailand, China Radio International. I mean, there's still quite a lot of stations on shortwave. It's still something that is used. The problem for certain areas like North America, for example, is that a lot of them are still there. I get all the time, BBC left shortwave, it's boring. BBC never left shortwave. Voice of America never left shortwave. What you have the impression they did for a very simple reason is that the target areas have changed. So North America is not a target anymore. But BBC has one of the most extensive shortwave schedules of languages and times every day. It is crazy. Same thing for the Voice of America. And it's just that you might have to deal with two things that are not helping our hobby. No target area, so a lot of stations don't broadcast towards North America, for example. So signals are weaker because you'll have to hear their targets to Africa or to the Middle East and so on, or Europe. But you have to battle that, so weaker signal, with noise level that is so much higher today. The noise level today is amazing compared to 30, 40, 50 years ago. 50 years ago, almost everything we used was analog stuff. Even 40 years ago, even if you had a computer, computers at that time were so expensive, they were like shielded like a tank. You would turn on your computer and you'd barely notice that there's noise somewhere. But as time went by and as electronics got cheaper, but also as one of the things, probably the devil of electronics, we went from big, heavy power supplies that were linear, that used a big transformer and had that, diode, the diodes and that, rectifying circuit that gave us with capacitors and some of the the early integrated circuits that would regulate the current. Those were so quiet. Those barely made noise. But we wanted smaller and smaller devices. One of the things that we did want. And of the smaller and smaller devices that you wanted, we had to make a choice. What do we change to make something smaller? Because we got to a point where this takes, 2 amps of power, but you want it in a box that this big. Just the power supply is this big. Just the power supply is this big. So what happens is that you had to make a difference. You had to choose something different to power the devices. Came the fantastic, fantastic switching power supply, that monstrous noise maker, because a lot of them were not well shielded and designed because they didn't care. Honestly, they did not care. And we started having devices that we plugged in, powered on, and hey, the S meter went crazy. Look at that. The S meter is like 3/4 of my scale, and there's not even a signal around, just the noise. And that is the killer of the hobby, much more than anything else. No, the internet is not a killer of the hobby. Noise is the killer of the hobby. It is higher and higher. And I'm pretty sure it's a killer of amateur radio also. Because what happens is ham radio operators, they love their hobby, and they eventually notice that they hear less and less. Why? Because where they do their ham radio stuff, the noise is getting too high, and at some point they're like, you know what, the hell with the hobby. I don't hear what I used to hear, and I'm tired. I don't hear anything. So hams left. I'm pretty sure a lot of hams love the hobby because, well, it's not fun anymore. That noise is crazy, and the general noise is killing our hobby. Less people. Luis says low sunspots is killing it. No, it's not. This is a false and a fake idea of killing the hobby. We had ups and downs for years. I mean, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, there were minimums. There were solar minimums. Did anybody talk, and I can tell you that, did anybody talk really about solar minimum in the 60s, 70s, or 80s? I don't see a lot of documentation on that. All I see is that there's tons of things to listen to and to do. So solar minimum is not a reason where, and it's not why the hobby is dying. I tell it all the time. Some of the best DX I've ever had were in solar minimum. What kills our hobby is truly the noise level that we have. And I think we can put that on the number one spot of why our hobby is dying, if we want to put that word or that phrase to it. It's, you turn on a radio, nothing. I got to deal with, that question all the time on the channel, through email. I buy that radio that you have, and I don't even hear half of what you hear. I was looking at your videos. You made a ETM scan. You had 36 stations. I did an ETM scan, and I got 4, and they're all, religious stations from the U.S. And the first thing that I think of is, because there's two things that could be a problem. There's could be mostly is don't do a scan at 1 p.m. in the afternoon. It's probably one of the worst times of the day for radio in general. The other thing is, if you have a lot of noise, forget it. You did that scan. You heard only the strongest of signals, which were all the ones that, if you live in North America, WWCR and the WBCQ or whatever. And you're like, yeah, that's all I hear. That's fantastic, Vodka cranberry. So what happens is that the noise blocks out a lot of the weaker signals. Yesterday I went to the park. I posted a video. In the park, I could hear easily the BBC on 15400, Voice of America on 15580. I could hear, Madagascar was booming in. I could hear Radio France. I could hear, if I had that type of reception here, I'd be a happy camper. I'd be really happy with my hobby. Unfortunately, I come back home here and it's like, yeah, okay, that's kind of boring. I don't, the BBC isn't even coming in here. It's in the noise. And one of the biggest problems with the noise um, is what's worse than noise is the fact that the stations are weaker and the noise blocks them. But then you go out, somewhere in the park, and it's like, I can hear it. You can hear a weak station very clearly. A station does not have to be full scale on your meter to be heard very well and to be comfortable in its listening. BBC yesterday, when I was in the park, we would have put that maybe at S6 or S7 on the S meter. And it was super clear, super easy, easy copy, good listening, not tiresome listening with noise or anything. You come back home, it's like, yeah, it's in there in the noise somewhere. That is the number one killer. And honestly, solar activity is not a killer of the hobby. Solar activity, whether it's high or it's down, it's not a killer of the hobby. It never did and never was. The internet is not. If the internet was so important, because that's where people often go to, they're like, well, on the internet, you get all these broadcasts. Yeah, some are streaming. Okay, some are streaming. Yes. But if the internet was so important, okay, then what I would say is Radio Netherlands would be on the internet with all their programs. Why doesn't Radio Netherlands do regular programs? Why isn't at least half, if not 3/4 of all the stations that are gone on the internet? They're not. They didn't see that the internet was there to replace them at all. They didn't see the internet as a medium to reach everybody. They left shortwave because, dwindling reception reports, less and less listeners, and it's very costly. So it's like, okay, we get 3 reception reports a month. We're going to keep this $35 million operation a year. What do we do? And that is much more. That is much more a problem with why shortwave is disappearing. Is the noise levels and everything has made a lot of people leave the hobby. One of the things we got to remember: there are 2 types of listeners: the DXer and the big fanatic of radio that we are pretty much are as a gang, because we're here right now. And there's the other type of listener, which is probably the majority of what listeners were, which is program listening. I wanted to listen to Radio Moscow. I wanted to listen to Radio Berlin International. I wanted to listen to Radio Sweden, to Radio Canada International, Radio Australia. Hear the programs. Listen to their programs. That is probably the dominant shortwave listener. But a dominant shortwave listener is the one that is not going to be happy with less than optimal listening. So if you are a program listener, when it gets to a point where the noise level came to be annoying and you didn't know what to do, because let's face it, once again, a big chunk of the shortwave listening people were not technical. They were listening. They were using their telescopic antenna on that radio. Majority of listeners were not putting up, 100 feet of wire outside to have better reception. They were just using the radio the way it was, which worked fine for a very long time. The 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s even. That radio with the telescopic worked great in your living room, in your kitchen, in your bedroom. But the noise crept up on us. It became more difficult to listen. People were less inclined to listen. There are world events that, of course, are making radio listening more appealing. One of them we will live through is the Cold War. The Cold War was a major driver of shortwave because we understood that to have our voice around the world was to listen to, do it on shortwave. Um, you know, this made a very unique situation. It's interesting. I came across I don't remember on what magazine. It's an old magazine. Oh, it's Popular Communications. Popular Communications from like 1997 or 8 or something. And the article is very negative. It's like, well, shortwave's dying and it's going to be dead in 20 years, which is not. I mean, we're in 2021. And I read that a couple of days ago. I downloaded, I don't remember which, I'll have to take a look at my tablet, what month, but it comes from the World Radio History website, all the magazines that are stored there. And I started reading it, and it was like, yeah, no, this is a bad article. This is the article that's saying that shortwave's dead and it's going to be dead in 15 years, nothing's going to be on. It was almost saying that amateur radio was also dead and that, by 2020, nothing's going to be there, which is not the case. And, I looked at that and I was like, what a bad article. It's like instead of putting a positive side to it, a positive outlook on it, you're just looking at the bad stuff. You're just looking at, it's going away. So why don't you give a solution? Why don't you tell people things they can maybe do to at least slow down the decline? We did that this week. What did I tell you to do on Saturday? And we're going to tell it tonight because we're going to do. I'm going to talk about it on next Saturday, this coming Saturday. I told you guys, write to at least one station you're listening to let them know that you are there. So I've actually written to KBS World Radio. I've South Korea, Radio Prague, French service. And I'm planning tomorrow, I'll have a little bit of time to write a couple more stations, let them know that I'm here listening to their broadcasts. You know what? That means a lot because if they get emails or letters or whatever, they're going to understand that there are some listeners out there. And it's important. If you are doing a show here, I have statistics. I look at my screen, I know I'm not talking to myself. We're at almost 100 people live. And, just last Saturday's show, 2,400 views. People are watching. There are people watching. I have statistics, which is cool. Because, if I see zero and I had 0 people here, what happens? Well, I wouldn't be doing this show because I was like, well, I don't have any stats. I don't have anybody telling me they're out there. Why am I bothering to even talk and do something like this if I don't know if someone's listening or watching? YouTube has statistics. I know people are watching. I know that it's happening. Now, that's why I'm here. Shortwave is complicated. There's no online statistic. There's no, the transmitter doesn't report back to, oh, there are 2,000 listeners right now or 200 listeners right now, or you don't know. You're transmitting a signal. You're relying on one major statistic, which is, am I receiving mail letting me know that, someone's out there? And I bet you that if more people would have written to these stations, we might actually have saved some of them. And we might still have more than we have now. But the problem is, it's easy to understand one thing. People are lazy, and that is a statistic. That is one major statistic. People are lazy. They don't want to do an action and do something. They listen to the station, but oh man, back in the 80s or 90s, taking a pen and a paper and starting to write, and then I gotta pay for it to stamp and put that in the mailbox. Oh man, that's too much to ask. You laugh, but it is the case that people are lazy. Most listeners never wrote to any station. The ones that wrote to stations are people like us. We're crazy about radio. We're the ones that are interacting, you know? For example, Richard Lemke that sent me an email earlier today. I'm sure he's watching. We hear Richard Lemke everywhere in Alberta. I hope you are well, my friend. I even hear him on World of Radio by Glenn Hauser this week. I mean, I hear Richard Lemke everywhere, which is great because that's what we want. But we want everybody to be like that. We don't want to have only Richard Lemke. Maybe he's keeping stations alive with all of the writing. But you know what? It is true that people are lazy. They are not taking the time to do a simple task. An email to a station takes, 10 minutes. Just, but you got to find that email and you got to find, it's like, yeah, okay, a little research. And you end up with, there's just a minimum amount of people in the hobby that truly interact and truly write and truly say, hey, I'm listening and I'm glad that you're still on shortwave. And the problem is that is the thing is you want to have people writing so that you know that people are listening. And so 30 minutes of talking, and I haven't even read anything on the chat room right now. That's going to be nice. So once again, there is a homework to do. I will repeat it tonight for those that were not there on Saturday. It's just, I'm asking one station. I'm not asking you write everything you listened to during the week. Just one. Choose one. Choose one. Maybe you want the one you like the most. And, if you don't know where to write, just go to the Facebook group, the official Shortwave Facebook group. Say, hey, what's the email for Voice of Turkey? What's the email? Or, and I'm, where somebody's going to answer and give you that email. Some have forms. Radio Prague, I was surprised they have a form for QSLs on their Radio Prague page, actually. The next one I'm going to write tomorrow is the Voice of Turkey. And, it's your homework. And Saturday, I want to know what are the stations you have written to. I will ask the question Saturday. And Richard Lemke sent me his list. I'm going to keep that for Saturday, and we're going to actually check out what stations people have written to. I'll have my list. Right now, I have KBS World Radio South Korea and Radio Prague. I want to write to Voice of Turkey and maybe Radio Tirana, and try to write to as many as I can in the next few days. So, this is the homework. And you know what? The homework is in the spirit of, if I can ask as much people as possible and that they actually write these stations. Well, these stations have a little bit of feedback. They know that people are listening. My homework is in the spirit of, you want to keep shortwave alive, you have a duty to keep it alive. My duty here personally is this. This is my gift, my way of wanting this to continue. And I do my best to promote it. I do my best to make sure that, people participate. Obviously, there's a lot of lovers out there of radio, of shortwave radio, of amateur radio. But you also have to do your part. If you don't write into any station, Don't ask yourself why tomorrow that station is going to say, you know what, we're leaving shortwave. I tell you guys, it still resonates in my head. The last show that HCJB did, talking about why they were leaving, they clearly said, and more than one time, well, we're not getting enough mail from listeners, which means they're not listening. They're not there anymore. I mean, listen to any mailbag from the 60s, 70s, 80s, and it was the same as today. Today, you hear the same names all the time. I hear on the French, to give you an idea. So here in Quebec, there was the Club on Cours du Québec, COCQ, that was a club that started in, I think, 1974 and lived through about mid 90s before it actually disappeared. And it disappeared for multiple reasons. One of them, when we talk about people that are kind of superior and think that we are the superior level of listening, and that without $1,000 receiver, we aren't really, we shouldn't be in the hobby because that's crappy, and that's a crappy radio. And that was that kind of club, honestly. I was a member of that club for several years. I even had the DX, the logging column. I actually did the logging column for a year because they didn't have anybody to do it. Okay, and how was I treated in that club for that year of the logging column? Like crap. There's all of these club members saying, well, you didn't actually post all of my loggings. There was one missing, so you better do a better job. Yeah, just shut up. I'm doing this for free, and you're not even lifting your little finger. So maybe you just go into your basement and, I don't know, do something else. Go to your stamp collection and stop listening to the radio or something. Not that stamp collection is bad. You get to a point where it's like, this is frustrating. Plus, my French writing isn't the best in the world. I would have these purists of language sent me my column and underline in red my French mistakes, and it's like, I would, at this time when I'm saying this, I would like to use that F word so much, because when you get that, it's like, yeah, you stupid idiot. Why don't you listen to the radio, right? And this is not a French language course, and this is not French, learning French. We're listening to the radio, apparently. But I don't know, So at some point, you're like, after a year, I remember, because I told one of the guys that was maintaining the club, I said, I'm not doing this. I'm stopping now. And he said, oh, you got to give us a couple of months. You got to give us a couple of months before we find somebody else. And I said, I'm not waiting a couple of months. I don't care. I'm leaving. You won't have a column next month. I don't give a. And I remember I said, not only that, is my membership is expiring next month. Forget it. You're not going to get my money. I don't give a damn about your club anymore. This is the worst damn club I've ever seen. And you're wondering why nobody wants to be in the club or do any columns anymore. It's like, yeah, this is the worst shit that I've ever seen. So you know what? I remember I left, and not to say that it could have contributed, but a year after that, the club didn't exist anymore. A year after, there were no more Club on Cours du Québec. And I remember I got contacted about, I don't know, that's about 1994-ish, 93. I got contacted around 1997, 98 by one of the guys that was a club member. he was like super hyped at Shortwave. And he said, you were somebody that wanted to take care of the club, and you did a great job in what you did to help the club. I would like to restart Club en Cours du Québec, the Quebec club. Would you would you work with me to try to revive the club? And I said, look, my memories of this club are bad, are negative, and I'm happy it's dead. And I'm sorry to say that, but I'm happy it's dead, and I'm not going to start that club again. It's arrogant people, stupid, arrogant ignorance that always think they're better than everybody else. I don't need that. That's the kind of people I hate. And that's the kind of people we all hate anyways, for the most. And, when we talk about ham radio, how some of the people in ham radio are like that, it's like, if you don't have $1,000 receivers and, you got CB, oh, I'm going to laugh. If you got a CB, I'm going to laugh at you. It's like, yeah, stupid idiot, and then you wonder why the hobby isn't getting better, because stupid people like you belittling other people are not helping. Maybe you should do something else. Maybe you should not even be in the hobby. And the worst is, these are the people that when you start listening to them for a while on the bands, they're not the best ham operators. They actually do a lot of things that are like, really, you're a ham and you're belittling everybody else, and you just did something that's like not even ham-like. You get to a point where, okay, that is a lot why I started my stuff. I started my stuff because I said, you know what? You want to really, really have things going the way you like it, the things going the way we should all enjoy the hobby, you got to start it yourself. And you got to do your own thing. Forget about the existing clubs. Forget about anybody that's out there. Start your own thing. Do it in a style that everybody is welcome, and do it in a style where we're all going to have fun, because that's how we get people to listen to Shortwave. That's how we get people here, and that's all I got to say, because I just want to say, I'm happy to have all of you guys here. I'm happy to have all of you guys enjoying the hobby and being great radio citizens of the world. And, we don't need those idiots. We have our fun. And I'll deal with the idiots that are always trolling me or sending me messages of I'm an idiot. I'm the guy that's going to, I'm the wall. I'm where it stops. And the rest, who cares? Okay? So cheers to radio listening for years to come. Cheers to shortwave, to amateur radio, to any type of radio listening. And have fun with your radios, whatever the price you paid. You listen to the radio, you're a great person. Cheers, everyone. Okay, so that was my speech. This is like a political speech. So am I going to be elected president of the the World Radio Association or something? Oh, God. I should be a president of some shortwave country. We need to buy an island in the Caribbean and start it off as the official shortwave country of the world. That'd be nice. And amateur radio, of course. Everybody's welcome, as long as you're not an idiot that thinks he's better than others. So 45 minutes of talking, man. This is some kind of record, I think. I wanted to, just share. So I'm going to talk a little bit more tonight of a lot of things. I'm going to go to the chat room right now. We're going to go as fast as we can, because I'm going to give a little bit of history where I come from for the shortwave stuff. For those that have not heard the story, for those that have, well, you can watch TV while I actually repeat myself for the 377th time. Although it seems that a lot of people saying, "Oh no, your stories are fun." So I was like, "Oh, okay." So nice to have everybody here, and you know what? Enjoy your hobby the best you can with whatever radio you have, and do it like you intend to do it. Nobody can tell you what to do. Okay. Charlie, W8CFO, nice to have you on board from Columbus, Ohio. Joshua, nice to have you on board. He's calling 2 meters on a VHF net repeater. Rob, nice to have you here, my friend. We have Hector Vasquez, nice to have you here, my friend. And first radio is Alicrafters SX101. Big Tom at a ham swap meet for $25. That's a great price. If it worked well, man, it's a really great price. Mike WX50, nice to have you here. Keegan XN80Xer, nice to have you on board. Rufus Newt, nice to have you here. Jim W8JB, nice to have you on board. David KJ4CMY. My first shortwave radio was a Lloyd's multiband portable. It was a great listening to it. And these are nice. You know, I hear these, all the multiband stuff. It's like, and you know, the mystery and the fun of the first time we don't know what we're tuning. There's some mystery behind it, you know. Tom DX or WPE2QED, nice to have you here from Hudson Valley, New York. Blind Picker, Texan 880. Corn Patch DX, nice to have you on board. Yes, this is the CKUT 90.3 FM t-shirt that was this year for the fundraiser. BW Bacon, nice to have you here. Alicrafters SX28A in 1967. Wow. Those days, I would love to hear what was on the air in those period of time, the 60s, the 50s. You know, if we could go back in time, imagine all the listening that we could do with our equipment from, you know, the world wars, Second World War mostly, and a little before that when, you know, broadcasts started and everything, and go forward in time. Man, it would be amazing. Mike WX50, first radio was a Radio Shack DX160. Dial was beautiful to me then, and still looks great to me. Even though it would not be considered a strong performer by today's standards. You know, we had the radio we had, and I mean, today I understand that the DX100 is a crappy receiver, honestly. But, you know, when I was 13 years old, it was the best, most beautiful thing in the world. It looked cool, and for some reason, $100 on a radio was like, this is a big radio. It's like, yeah, okay. WF7I Homebrew, nice to have you on board. He says he's got his 1981 DX100 fired up. Cool. 40th anniversary of shortwave listening this October. Well, happy anniversary, 40th anniversary. Mine, my official anniversary is coming up in August of next year. I'm thinking about something special we're going to do here on the channel, so we still have a little bit of time to think about it. Jim W8JB, my first radio on to listen to shortwave was a Kenwood TS930 SAT. Aerial Imaging, what's up? Nice to have you here. My first real shortwave radio was a Radio Shack DX351, bought at Radio Shack in Lincoln City, Oregon in 1998. Heard all sorts of foreign languages and had no idea what any of it was. Charlie W8CFO says a 2-tube regenerative back in the whoops, I lost the I'm coming back to you, guy. So here we go. I'm getting there. So in the late 40s, first shortwave receiver. Skip, nice to have you on board. N2EI from South Jersey. Mike Dovis, nice to have you on board from Twin Cities. Jay Watterson 69, nice to have you here. Corn Patch DX says the first shortwave radio was Alicrafters SX43. Wow. Hey there, Fastload. Nice to have you here. VE2ERB. How do you like your new toy, the TS440 SAT? Enjoying it? It's a very close cousin of the Kenwood R5000 in reality. And the receiving side. Rob Wells, nice to have you on board. What else do we have? My first shortwave I listened to Peter J. Peters. That guy almost gave shortwave a bad name. Yeah, it was like today, somebody that stumbles upon, you turn on the most horrible thing today. You turn on the shortwave radio for your first time, you're all excited, and all you hear is Brother Stare. Oh, God. Now I know why you're not listening to shortwave anymore. Joe Tyson, nice to have you here from Apex, North Carolina, KM4WRQ. Stephen Wood, Sears 4-band portable radio. Don't think it even had a model number. It probably did, because they all had a model number, but sometimes it wasn't like that obvious. Sometimes it wasn't that obvious, but HCJB was one of the first stations I can remember hearing. Man, that was a popular station back then. Jim, nice to have you here from Rhode Island. Kevin, nice to have you here. WS2H, finished homework, QSL to Radio Romania. Cool. Vince, salut, j'espère que tu vas bien. His first experience on shortwave in 1933 Marconi. Now my real experience knowing what I'm doing is 3 years ago with a PL600. Cool. David KJ4CMY says, I listened where the BBC World Service and HCJB. Brendel Klontz, my first shortwave receiver was a Telefunken console with 2 shortwave bands, AM, FM, stereo, and a record player down below. One of the first FM stereo receivers, about 1956. Wow. In 56, it was one of the first, definitely one of the first FM stereo that existed for sure. Keegan, Radio Shack 12795 multiband at Christmas 2000. So look at that thing. Christmas 2000 brought you here and brought you to more radio listening. Mike, WDX50, I think first stations heard were BBC, Radio Netherlands, and ACJB. Pretty cool. Charlie W8CFO had a 3 to 6 megahertz Warsaw plus command receiver. Wow. Luis Giliberto says the only good thing about COVID and working at home, listening to shortwave and the streams. Yes, indeed. Jerry DX, nice to have you on board. Hope there's no hard feelings from last week. Things happen. It doesn't, no, there's nothing personal. Things happen. So, hey, Skip. Oh, yeah, there were, 4 in there, I think. So everything is all right in nominal orbit. I had a very, not with this mission, but I had a bad thought a couple of weeks ago, because I was thinking, with all of these companies now sending regular folks up in space, I was thinking, when's going to be the first big disaster with regular folks? And I don't want to be negative. It's because space travel is not as easy as it seems, and it's bound to happen. And I was thinking, wow, someday we're going to have some rich billionaire that's going to just die up there because of some reason or some explosion or something. But it's nice to see this. And I mean, there's a lot of talk about this and rich people going in space and so on. Look, let them have their fun. That's all. Mobile Armored Strike Command. Nice to have you on board from Boulder Hill. Corn Patch says, yep, noise level. Good point. Yep, noise level is a horrible one. David KJ4CMY. When I first became shortwave listener, my parents' TV made so much hash, I listened from the backyard. My story I have with that, the hash of noise, and I'm 40 minutes behind in the chat, guys. So, don't worry, I'm coming up to you. Is downstairs where I lived back then, I had no noise for the first couple of years of radio listening. Then I started having some kind of buzzing, which sounded like, a buzzing TV signal. And the neighbors downstairs had purchased a brand new 26-inch Sony TV. When they would turn it on, I would get the buzzing on certain frequencies. And I still remember the most annoying of it was on the strong stations. It didn't matter. But I was listening to Radio Australia, 17795, If you listen to shortwave in North America for Australia, for a while, you all know 17795 was that great evening frequency. And that buzz was exactly on 17795. And even though Radio Australia was decent, the buzz was strong enough to make it unpleasant to listen to. And I still remember summer and the summertime and the summer vacation. I knew that they were always going to bed at 11 p.m. So what I do, I'd listen to some other stuff. And at 11 p.m., I would tune 17795, and 5-10 minutes later the buzz would go because they just shut down the TV. That was my first ever encounter with a device or that you have at home that actually created noise. Ronald Klons, one of my first stations was Radio Moscow, VOA, Voice of America, and the American Forces Radio Network, so AFRTS. Joe Rodman, nice to have you here from Chicago area. Gang of Four, nice to have you here from New Hampshire. What else do we have? Hello there, Aaron Scrang. Be careful with the language, please. No harsh language. Nice to have you here. Ronnie Isaac, nice to have you here. Watch the previous live stream. Asked about the Texan 660 or SDR immediately after your response. I ordered Texan 660, waiting for it anxiously. You're going to have a lot of fun. And we're here for questions. If you have any questions, you want to know how to, listen to your first stations and stuff, join the Facebook group, official SWL channel. It's also a great place to be. Skip, N2EI, has first receiver, Radio Shack DX160. That was also a very popular model for first-time radio listeners. A lot of people started with the Radio Shack DX160. So pretty cool. Mobile Armor Strike Command wants to say hello to the director, producer, Mr. Paul, behind the console. Mad Radio DXer, nice to have you on board from the UK on this late or early morning Thursday. Always nice to have you here. Take 7. Still trying to figure out which one to get. It's my first shortwave device. There's a lot of choice, or a lot of good choice for really decent prices today. I can tell you that. Luis says, can confirm noise kills ham radio too? Absolutely. Absolutely. Joshua Gosnell says, real bad on ham is noise. Yep. SoCal, nice to have you here from California. Phil, AJ6II. Refus listened to shortwave in the 70s and 80s, restored a Spartan tube radio in 89. Been back ever since. WF7I Homebrew feel like a lot of ham moves to rural areas and put up huge arrays. You know what? There's a ham here. So 3765, there's a bunch of Quebec French speaking hams that gather every evening. And actually one of them has purchased a farm. That guy purchased a farm, not the farm, because he wanted to get out of Montreal to have less noise and be able to put up all the antennas he wanted. And I was listening to that a couple of years ago because I hear him still today. And I remember a couple of years ago when one guy was asking him where he was and everything. And he was living in Montreal. And his story actually was that not noise was that bad, but the neighbors were complaining about him getting in their TVs. And then there was like the complaint of the antennas and everything. So he decided, well, the hell with it. I'm not going to, continue here. And of course, I don't know what he does for a living, but seems to have a pretty good paycheck. So he actually purchased a farm that he saw was on sale. And he actually now lives up there on the farm, far from everybody else. And as he always say, he says it all the time. So I'm so happy to not have any neighbors for like kilometers around, because I don't have to deal with anybody. I don't have the noise from anybody. And he's kind of happy there. So I'm sure there are some hams that actually probably went to rural areas to have less noise. I wouldn't be surprised that there's really the really um, I would say the the core hams, the ones that are really into the hobby. If they had the possibility to do this, I wouldn't be surprised some of them did. Honestly, if I had the money, I would not. I would still live in the city, but I would definitely have a second place outside of the city where noise is lower, and that would probably be not only my my shack to be in nature and be in a different place from the city, but also because of the low noise. I lived that through that when I was young. With my dad had a shack in La Concepcion, and that place was like heaven. Even today, it must still be because it hasn't really developed that much. I was looking at the Google Maps a couple of weeks ago of what it looks like, and it hasn't changed that much around that place. I'm pretty sure it's still DX Evan, actually. TVDXer, salut, ça va bien? J'espère que tu vas bien toi aussi. Nice to have you on board, my friend. Joe Tyson, the noise sucks for amateur radio operators. He's got S6 noise floor on his IC7200 transceiver. Tom DXer, my first radio was Lafayette HA63. My first night listening, November 65. Wow. First station I heard was Radio Vania. Second, Radio Sofia. Third, Radio Portugal. Oh, wow. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. But Ham's frustrated with the propagation is much more of a I'll be I'll it's my opinion, and you might not, people might not share it. My opinion of people complaining about propagation is more about people complaining about noise, but turning it into, well, propagation's crappy. There's not a lot of hams to listen to on the ham bands because there's just not a lot of hams. And the ones that you might hear that are not there is because of the noise. I would say, even though propagation definitely plays a part in our hobby, I would say, easily 7 or 8 out of 10 propagation complaints are noise complaints and no activity complaints being put on propagation. Because most of the time when people say, well, propagation is bad tonight, I often take a peek just to see. Propagation is actually good most of the time. It's just that, probably have too much noise where you are. Probably there's just not enough activity, especially in the ham bands. Or, if you have a lot of noise, a lot of stations don't make it because they're washed out. Mike Dovis, well, it's not religion that's killing the hobby. It's the wording isn't right, but there's definitely too many religious stations on shortwave. That's for sure. Jerry X, how about don't live in a big city? Yeah, but for a lot of people, that's not the case, and that's the problem, is that you have to, for most people, you got to live you live in an urban area and you got to deal with it. Delta Sierra 2 GLY, Golf Lima Yankee. Nice to have you here. What else do we have? So, Jerry DX, I'm having vodka cranberry, like as usual. It's the official drink of the official shortwave channel. Current Patch DX says one of my favorite stations I would tune to in the 80s, 90s was WRNO. Yeah, back then when they were called the Rock of the World. The Rock of the World. Actually, I have let me just do this here. I got some stickers on that DX100. And look at one of the stickers. If you could see it right here, we just move this and this. So one of the stickers right here is WRNO. That one's Radio France. On this side, anything else? Oh yeah, Radio Norway International. Look at that. Let me just here we go. Radio Norway International. So some of the stickers from the good old days. From the good old days of radio listening. So yeah, WRNO, the rock of the world. Still remember that. Definitely. What else do we have? What else do we have? Barry, nice to have you here. Luis, when I first started, I was a program listener, but now I'm more a DX because lack of programs, yet still addicted to shortwave. WF7I homebrew signals really loud tonight at 40 meters in West Central Virginia. Pegging the needles. Cool. Danny, Shortwave Radio DX from Yonkers, New York. Nice to have you on board. Matt, MDK2. There are always pundits selling gloom and doom because readers want emotional rather than rational articles. Keep that in mind on any subject where someone declares something is dead or dying. Yeah. That's why their magazine might be dead now. Yeah, Shortwave's dead, so they all left their subscription. Others out of Crafter's Kitchen. Nice to have you here. What else do we have? I'm going to try to go down a little faster, guys. I just want to try to catch up with the chat. If I haven't said hi, please do so again. Northern Dawn, nice to have you here. Chris G7VEO, nice to have you on board. Canadian Radio TV guy, nice to have you on board. He forgot his shortwave homework. So, yeah, you know, you're not going to pass your grades, man, if you are not writing to at least the station Saturday. Might remove that moderator status. Joe King. Robert Prosper. You know, we're going to do a instead of a democracy, we're going to do a some kind of a very, communist-like channel. It's like, if you don't write a channel to a station, I'm going to remove that moderator status. Get it? You're not worthy of any shortwave radio channel. Christian Marcoux, nice to have you here from North Bay, Ontario. Robert Prosper, is there such a thing that is a cheap under $50 radio that is good for AM DXing? That's interesting. For AM medium wave DXing. Yeah. I would say the Texan, well, yeah, it's not under 50. So you're really talking under 50. You're getting at a price point that's kind of tough. Maybe an AM FM only radio. Maybe. So, Bobby Burgess, does doing reception reports on Twitter count? You know, as long as the stations know that you are listening, which means you have to have a feedback, some kind of feedback, or know and make sure that you actually have, the station has read your comments or email. That's where I'm at. You have to make sure that the station knows you have written in. Not just, they're probably going to, they're going to know I've written. No, they're not going to know. You got to make sure they know you've written in. If in Twitter they, react or know that you were, you actually, were listening and they know, okay. Current patch, Mrs. HCJB Mailbag. I miss the musical Mailbag. We were talking about it Saturday, I think, where, they were eating. And it's like, yeah, they're eating cookies and cake. How can I listen to HCJB on a Saturday evening and not have chips or something? Appalachian Underground, new to the hobby, but already radio knobs deep. Radio knobs deep. Really enjoy your channel. Thank you for being here, my friend. Um, Keegan had a lot of FMDX on Sunday the 12th. Cool. Yeah, Luis, easier to complain than help. Absolutely. Jerry X, $1,000 receiver is better. I understand the arrogance. Not really, Jerry. I can tell you that I don't see a lot of difference from an SDR player or SPDX. That's a couple of $100 with $1,000 receivers. It ain't true today. And that is something that was true for a long time. Not today. $1,000 receiver today is not necessarily better. I do not agree with that, and I hope you're not going to start ranting. But that's my take on it. That's why I do not believe in buying $1,000 receivers anymore. And I will not, if I have a receiver, I talked about, a lot of you came back to me and said, maybe I'm thinking of an ICOM IC 7300. And you're going to say, well, that's a $1,500 radio. It's not for the radio part. It's just that I want to have a decent transceiver. Because for the radio part, I would not buy that just for listening. It's because I want a decent transceiver. The Yaesu FT450 that I have is nice. But any radio that doesn't have a keypad entry for frequency drives me completely nuts. That's one thing. So I would have a radio, but honestly, I would not buy a radio like that. Like I would not buy an IC 8600, even if I had the money. I do not believe in that anymore. You do not need $1,000 radios anymore today. Not for our hobby. You can DX as much with those Texan receivers. There are a few gadgets and a few extras that these radios, might offer. But honestly, it's spending. I find it spending too much money today. I'd rather have 10 radios than have a $2,000 radio. I'd have more fun with that. Current patch that you help and did all of that for others' benefits. Thank you, Gel. Screw those nitpicks turds. Yeah, absolutely. Jerry found out that so-called German ham is actually from Japan. Had a ham verify it. Can you believe it? So everyone got it wrong across the board. It was not from Japan. He was really from Germany. But anyways, doesn't matter. Passed. Let's go to the next challenge. Mike WDX50. After a year after I joined New York News Radio Club, they closed up shop. What else do we have? Northern Dawn says some radio clubs seem to hate having new members. It's because I think there's two types of radio clubs around. There's clubs like the Messenger, the Canadian International DX Club. That is just let's have fun and be a gang of radio geeks around the Messenger, which is a great bulletin. And no pretension, no I am better than you with my equipment or whatever. But there are clubs that were like, gold member clubs or platinum member clubs, where it's like, I'm sorry, you got a Texan PL330, you cannot get in because we believe in, $1,000 receivers only. And I would almost say that a lot of the clubs that died are the ones that were too pretentious and didn't understand that we're all listening to the radio, I wouldn't be surprised that somebody, laughed at, oh, he's got a realistic DX 100, the crappiest thing around back in the 80s. You know what? I don't care. I had so much fun with that. I'm sure I even had more fun than your $1,000 radio that I hear you talking more about your radio actually than whatever you're listening to it to, there's this thing where it's like, yeah, you mentioned that $1,000 radio every time we talk. I don't hear you talking about what did you listen on it recently. It's like I don't care. You got $10,000 radio. It's good for you, but it ain't what makes the hobby fun. The hobby's fun is listening and enjoying whatever is out there, whatever radio you have. That's all. That's all. Others out of Crafter's Kitchen. Some of my favorite vintage radios. The two I started, both restored Panasonic RF2200 and my late father's Alec Crafter's SX42. He bought new at age 15. Wow. Wow. Luis, thank you, Joe, sincerely for doing all the hobby and making it fun. Well, I'm here that for that reason, mainly, honestly. Mike, WDX50, a local DXer here in Fayetteville. Mitch Sam started the Ozark Mountain DX Club, and I joined them for a while. Alpha Beta from Nanaimo B, British Columbia. First radio was Alec Crafter's S38, odd chassis, late 60s. Dangerous, yes. These radios were actually very dangerous. And the first usable radio was a Radio Shack DX160. I'm surprised not more people got electrocuted by their radios or whatever tube devices from the time, because these things were crazy. The export, has Countycom said anything lately on the GP7? So they have arrived in port, so they know that the shipping has arrived in California. They just need to receive whatever the shipment is. So it's really getting close, and I will keep everybody updated as soon as they are available. But it's any day now. They know that the radios have arrived. Joe Rothman says, cheers. Roxy, 3025, I appreciate what you do. Thanks for all the work. Well, thank you very much. Scott Belcher, nice to have you here. Rin, nice to have you here. What else do we have? What else do we have? So I'm just going to try to catch up a little more. Okay. Where am I? So we're at 9:18, and I am so we're half hour. I'm catching up. We went for 40 minutes to half an hour. So everybody says cheers. Listening for many years to come. JDX guys with $1,000 radios are seasoned listeners, more refined. Nah, I don't agree with that. Most $1,000 receiver listeners that I've seen don't even know how to operate their radios much. They're just happy to have some $1,000 radio on their desk to brag about more than radio listening. And I can tell you there's a lot of those. Without counting the ones that have $1,000 receivers and don't even know what it does. Alpha Beta was a NASWA member for many years. Michael Satterfield, K4AFT, cheers, nice to have you here. WS7i Homebrew has 15600 Beijing Direct. We're in rural Virginia tonight. Cool. Didn't Pink Floyd tear down the wall? Well, there's two types of tearing down the wall, I would say. John Doe, nice to have you on board. Good evening. What do you recommend for my first shortwave listening DXers outdoor antenna? I live in a country with lots of space. Lone wire, G5RV, loop. If you live in a place where there's a lot of space and it's quiet, the wire is your friend. Actually, look at all the different designs making a dipole or whatever that are easy to do with just some wire and some space to put them up on. Anybody that lives in a countryside or in a place where you could have a lot of space to put up antennas, I would never recommend anybody buy an antenna, a commercial antenna. I would say look at all the designs. There's so much easy designs actually to do that I would be the first to build my own dipoles and antennas just by wire and coax and have fun. And the next thing you'll need to know is just how to measure how long you got to do it and so on, and experiment. I would never buy commercial antennas. Commercial antennas exist because a lot of hams just don't want to go through the building phase of an antenna. So they'll buy, a commercial antenna because it's already made, it's already done, and I don't have to think about it. But and it's fine. I mean, it's all right. But when you have a lot of space and quiet conditions, you can make great antennas by yourself without even spending, just spending the whatever it costs to get the wire and the coax, and have fun. And that's even more interesting, is having fun. I'm not bashing commercial antennas. There's some great antennas out there, that's for sure. But if you have the space and you want to try it, have fun and just do it yourself. Bob D, nice to have you here. So Bobby Burgess, nice to have you here. Ronald Klons, best way to ID a station, listen until they say their call sign. Yep. Game Radio TV guy votes for show for official shortwave party. You could you could buy harp. I like that. I'm moving to Alaska. If I can get harp for a decent price that I could afford, I'm moving to Alaska, and we're going to have the most powerful shortwave station out of Alaska that exists in the world. We're going to be competition to the the Flat Earthers guy, the World's Last Chance WBZQ. I'm going to actually call up Alan Wiener and say, you think you are the most powerful thing in North America? Wait till I fire out this baby. Oh, man. Kevin Upton, nice to have you on board from Michigan. Thanks for the time and effort to bring us all together. I'm happy to do so. It's because I love the hobby, and I love sharing my passion of the hobby with everybody. That's why I'm here, because I like to share that fun with everybody. So I'm saying hi again, Bobby Burgess. Sorry. Chris66, nice to have you on board from Kentucky. What else do we have? Mika Delmich, nice to have you on board from Brandon, Manitoba, where it all started for me with a Heathkit GR81 regenerated receiver, where one's body reacted with the receiver. Sometimes I had to hold the knobs to stop the squeal in 1972. Some of the fun things of radio. I remember, just to give you guys the radios had weird effects sometimes. My first boombox from Radio Shack that I dearly loved, and I got it in like 1984-ish, and I used it until 1993, 94-ish. It was beaten down. The buttons were all gone, but I still loved that radio. They had, when you would record on tape, they had a button in the back, a switch that you had to switch from one position or the other. And it was so weird, because what I had understood is that on AM, when you recorded, there were some of these little whistles going everywhere. It's like there were like birdies. And if one of the birdies, when you record, was on the station you were listening to, you had to take that switch and switch it in a different position. And I always wondered, what the hell is that design? You've got to switch from one side to the other to remove the birdie from the station you're listening to. And there were some. I remembered one of my favorite stations I would record stuff from had that birdie, and I always had to switch every time. It's like, what? This is so weird. What a weird radio design. Rainer Klon says you can also type AM and frequency into Google. Yep. Radio Rich 100, presently using the ICOM R9000. Started with a Zenith transoceanic tube radio for 54 to a Heatkit GR64 and also an ICOM R71A, which is a classic in desktop receivers, and a Sea Crane Skywave. Cool. Jason Francis, nice to have you on board from Ottawa, Canada. Those that have not answered or were not here at the beginning, I'm asking you guys, what was the first real serious shortwave radio you've used to listen to the radio into the shortwave bands? In what year, if you want to share the year? Mobile Armor Strike comments, and my first radio was a realistic Patrolman's Shortwave 60, which belonged to my brother, but lost it during my hitchhiking days back in 87. Oh, that's so sad. Here, I'm going to show you what it looks like. There's one right here. This one is the CB60, but in the back of it, there's actually the Shortwave 60. So that was my first scanner radio, if you want. When I started listening to VHF, UHF, that was the radio I used. Once again, not the best radio in the world, but you know, that's what we had, and that's like what I want to say today is whatever you have to have fun with it. Louis, my first was a realistic DX440. That's a popular model. It's also known as the Sangean ATS 808, something like that. Rick, nice to have you here from Milwaukee. Alan Dawson, just found my DX394 Model B a few days ago. Forgot about it for years. Did have a DX160, which I used to listen to Ship to Shore. Back in the days, yeah. That, you say 934, it must be 394, I would guess. Mark Lambrick, nice to have you here. Texan PL990, that's much more modern. Thomas Tamaro, nice to have you here from Jersey. First radio was my dad's Grundig i5. Roxy 3025 says, not been listening that long, but my first radio was a Tivio V115. Michael Satterfield, K4AFT, my first shortwave was a Sony ICF 2010 and 87. That was a big gun portable at the time, I can tell you that. Danny Shortwave, like your wall weather station display, is that connected to the weather vane outdoors? Yeah, so I've got the I've got the weather sensors just below the W6LVP loop in the back, and that is reporting with the radio signal on UHF to my weather station here with wind, temperatures, and it actually, and I'm very happy, it actually synchronized with WWVB. Last night, I had the little antenna on the display. I was like, wow, it actually did. I think it's the first time in ages since it's actually did synchronize. But, I love that weather station. I actually changed the batteries today. It's funny because on the Canadian Tire website where I purchased it, it says people are like, well, the batteries don't last. Batteries don't last. The batteries ended were like 3 years before I changed them. They went through 3 winters, and I changed them today because there's a little flashing icon saying the batteries are kind of dead now. Okay, so it's like, yeah, I don't know what batteries were you using. You bought the cheapest brand possible or something. Thomas, been listening on and off for 27 years. A lot of us did an off and on listening over years. That's for sure. Our JD Dakota for shortwave was a realistic Astronaut 4 multi-band receiver, connected a long wire antenna to it, and found hundreds of stations on it. Mobile Armor Strike Command, when I send a reception report to an international broadcast station, I include my shortwave listening QSL card. Oh, that's cool. That is cool. That is cool. One of my first ever QSL cards, Radio Nederland. Next, Radio RSA. VT Radio, Paul A1SU, nice to have you here from Northern Vermont. TVDX, her first shortwave radio is Sony ICF 7600A in 1985. So that's a pretty good radio too. That was one of the good ones also in the portable radios. That's for sure. So it's pretty nice. Nice to see what people were actually using in radios. Pretty cool. So let's try to continue down. If I forgot to say hello, just say hello again. Victor Coco, nice to have you from New Jersey, USA. Nice to have you on board. Will you attend any ham radio events sometime soon? Well, here it's kind of complicated. COVID is not leaving, and we're actually having rising cases. There's a lot of stuff that's kind of a lot of everything is virtual right now. And so I don't know. Randall Klons, do you know where our Radio Australia broadcast from on 9580? I believe 9580 was from the Shepparton transmitter site, because they had 3 transmitter sites for Radio Australia. Shepparton, they had the Melbourne, and they had another one in, I'm trying to remember, but I think the Shepparton, I'm maybe not pronouncing it right, by the way, transmitter side was the one on 9580. Chris, G7VEO was first shortwave was a Grundig C6500 and 78. Randy in Riverside, California, nice to have you here. Solitary radio listener, aren't we all, except for these shows? Nice to have you here from Southern Illinois, WA9211SWL. VT radio, first shortwave radio was a DX160, and that model comes back regularly. A lot of people really purchased that model at the time it was available. So pretty cool. 564 Fire, good evening. First time here. My first shortwave radio was a Kenwood R5000. Wow. That you started with a good model from the start. Really amazing. Northern Dawn got Sri Lanka on 11905. I haven't had that receive in such a long time. What does having noise refer to? Well, it means that your background noise, the hiss that you hear, is higher than it should be, because there's a lot of electronic devices that create noise. That actually makes more of the background noisy and removes all the weak stations, because the noise is like a radio signal. But it's, one of the things about noise is how it's easy to not know that you have noise. When somebody turns on a radio, you have static, and you hear static, and people are used to, you turn on a radio, there's static. But the problem is, what's normal static? What should the static be at? What level it should be? And that's where today it's complicated, because you turn on a radio, you'll hear static, and you'll say, well, it's radio static. Yeah, but the static, that background noise you have, is way more present, is much stronger than it should be. And all the weak stations that in a normal environment with the regular background static would actually come in are washed out. And you won't notice. You're just like, well, I don't hear anything. Well, the reason you don't hear anything is that noise is stronger than all the things that you hear right now. And that's a big problem in our hobby right now. Yeah, anybody did the Mobile Armor Strike Command? Anybody did the Route 66 on the air stations? Trevor Williams, new to the hobby. I like the SDR radios, like the Malachite and the ATS-25, because the noise reduction is so good. But should I go for the quality toughness of the H501X? Here's the thing about that noise reduction, just to put it straight. It's kind of nice, and yes, it works well when you actually have a decent signal. But that noise reduction, and I see it all the time, people are like, oh, I'm in a noisy environment, I'm going to buy that thing. If a radio station is in the noise, that noise reduction is not going to help. It's going to help zero. If that station is pretty much at the noise floor, You're not getting more. It works well to remove the noise around it when the noise is much lower than the signal itself. But when the noise level is at equal, it doesn't do anything. So to give you an idea, that noise reduction looks great on paper. When you listen to it, it sounds great. You're not going to get any station more than anybody else because of that noise reduction. Don't forget that. No one will DX something that you can't get on any other radio. It will be noisier on the other radio, but they're still going to hear it. It's just something you got to be careful, because I think too many people think of it as a magical thing. But once you get to noise floors that are very, very close to signal levels, that signal to noise ratio, as we call it, that noise reduction helps zero. It is really for signals that are actually stronger than the noise floor. And I've tried it many times here on this Chinese Melashite, which works as good. That noise reduction works as good as the Russian one. It works good on regular signals, but like I said, on signals that the noise floor and the signal are very close together, doesn't change anything. It makes me think that it looks great, but you're not going to DX on that anything that anybody else going to hear on a Texan H501X, for example. But when it works well and when you have a proper signal for it, definitely it's kind of nice. It's not perfect. I mean, it's tiresome. I turn it off often because it sounds great, but it kind of muffles the signal a little. It's a digital kind of rework of this of the signal, so it's not always great. Sometimes listening to music is horrible with it because it actually plays too much in the audio frequencies. And to audio, it depends on the frequency or the tone of the announcer's voice. Sometimes it sounds great. Sometimes it sounds kind of crappy. But it's kind of cool, and it's nice. VT radio. I have thought of buying an old farm myself so I could put up my antennas and really long beverage antennas. Yep. Joe Tyson planned on moving to the suburbs to start being an antenna farm for my transceivers and radios. So, I guess a lot of hardcore hams and radio listeners might be thinking about that. So, WF7I homebrew, moved to a rural area for many reasons, but definitely helped the radio hobby. Absolutely. That's the problem with a city dweller. Urban radio listeners are unfortunately disadvantaged, if you want. Frederico Pires, nice to have you here from Uruguay. First shortwave receiver was a big Philips boombox, yellow and black. Cool. Brad, nice to have you here. Nice to have you on board. B Rice, I'm sure during the beginning of the pandemic, a lot of people were doing ham radio. Actually, I remember reading an article that at the beginning of the pandemic, ham radio courses had a boost. People had time for radio now, and they wanted to be there and do stuff. I can tell you that. Just try to catch up as fast as I can. It's hard to catch up today. John McClure, nice to have you on board. Posey, Pappas Diaz family, nice to have you here from Georgia. Mad Radio DXer, I have a St. Jane radio that has Christian Science Monitor sticker on it. Yeah, I remember when the Christian Science Monitor was, they were all over the bands. Dave, nice to have you here. Solitary radio listener. Says I lost the spot I was on. Hopefully, I'm going to catch it soon. John Beckham, nice to have you here. Richard Califano, nice to have you on board. Keep the hobby on fire. So, what the hell is that? This is 7780, I think, that has music right now. Okay, solitary radio listener, Voice of Grace, plus 10 in Southern Illinois on his Drake R8, 9420. Brad can't remember his first radio, was a loaner. First one I owned was a DX160 once again. Yep, I had a Kenwood R5000. It's actually going to come back soon. Apparently, since Fastload has a TS440, which is kind of in the close family, I'm going to get my R5000 back eventually. What else do we have? Emmanuel Mota, your mic is running hot. Nice to have you here. What else do we have? What else do we have? Brian Weitenheimer, nice to have you on board from British Columbia. Danny Shortwave just wrote to CFRX. Pretty cool. Robert Prosper, I don't think I'm a snob, but I never joined a radio club that would have me as a member. So, you don't have to be in a club anyways, honestly. Our JDA Dakota companies like Sewadon and Texan have narrowed the gap of these devices. At one time, the technology gap was much different. Yeah, in the 80s or 90s, there was a huge difference between having a expensive tabletop and the portable radios that were still expensive, but there was definitely a big difference between both. It was two different worlds. Today, that gap is very small, very small. As your first radio, C-Crane Skywave or PL330. Unless you want to have airband, then Skywave SSB for local airport listening of the airband on VHF. But for the rest, the PL330, vastly superior to the Skywave and more precise in tuning and 1/3 the price, pretty much. Jim W8JB. Oh yeah, antennas are important, that's for sure. Try to have positioned the antennas in a way that we have the least amount of noise possible. And antennas are important, absolutely. Absolutely. So Mel M, nice to have you here. Canadian Radio TV guy, I wonder if could get in a club with my Ethon Elite Field desktop radio and my PL330, or would I just get laughed at? You would get in a club, but clubs, once you join them and you would meet up, that's where at the time a lot of clubs were like poo-poo, because you have only that radio. VT Radio, WBZ 100 year special event on the air Friday. Yes, September 19th, 100 years of WBZ. Do check that out. Barry, my first exposure to shortwave was one of those off-brand AM/FM shortwave. Yeah, I had my first experience was pretty much with something like that also, for sure. Richard, nice to have you here from West Albany, New York. Dan, nice to have you on board from Ohio, N8WJZ. What else do we have? Mason, nice to have you here from Ontario. Pretty cool. Canadian Radio TV guys got a 1935 RCA AM shortwave tube radio from my late step grandfather's who I believe was in the Navy in World War II. Cool. John Beckham, nice to have you here. Scott Belcher, what about the antennas that are used for ham radio transceivers? Would those work just hooked to a shortwave radio receiver, just for listening purpose? In general, good ham radio antennas for the transceivers work as well for receive. It's not just for transmit. I mean, transmitting, it's important to have good antennas and that they are well tuned, but usually does work very well for receive also. What else do we have? Move over KNLS from Alaska. Yep. Oh, man. Oh, God. What else do we have? Keegan has 5,000 and 10,000 WWV. John Beckham, I started listening to shortwave around 67 with a Monarch vacuum tube receiver. Dave, my first shortwave radio was a Realistic DX380 in 1992. Still got it, but the volume is diminished these days. Huh. Seems like there's some problem with the audio amplifier or something. Mad Radio DX, their first serious radio after owning a Panasonic boombox was for shortwave was a Grundig Yacht Boy 215 in 87. Mason Patrolman shortwave 60, my first. WIFR, HCJB, Vatican Radio, Radio Netherlands, and so on. Lyndon Price, nice to have you here. Sony ICF shortwave 55 in 1991. Danny Shortwave, first shortwave listening was my brother's JVC boombox in 77. BBC was my first station. MDK2 just sent you a photo of the 1935 built radio. That was my first shortwave receiver. Let's check that out. Of course, I had to drop the control. Let's check that out here. So, Matt shortwave, first shortwave radio. Oh God, this is beautiful. Look at that. Look at that, guys. This is very nice. This is a very nice radio. Thanks for sharing, Matt. Really cool. Really cool. So nice to see these old radios. Oh, man. It's cool that the boomboxes, yeah, absolutely. You know, I think a lot of people dabbled in shortwave, even not knowing what it was, just because there was something called SW on those boombox. So, you know. Yep, the weather station has the atomic clock in it, the atomic clock. You know, the I don't like to call it the atomic clock, but it's like, you know, the synchronization with WWVB on 60 kilohertz. Canadian TV guy, it's weird to think that if my step-grandfather never passed away in 2014, I would probably never gotten his old Realistic DX66 and got into shortwave listening or got in any of his older receivers. Because let's face it, unless we were introduced to shortwave in some way, I mean, before the radios, I had no idea there was such a thing as the, you know, shortwave radio international broadcast bands. It was pretty crazy. Scald Bencher, my first grinding was from the 90s, was advertised in magazine. I think it may have been the Yacht Boy with the roll map on it. I got it to hear music countdown on BBC. Huh. Solitary radio listener. My first big radio was a Drake R8 purchased in October 91. I'm listening to it tonight. 10 years before was a Radio Shack Portables. My R8 will be 30 years old next month. Yep, time goes fast with these old radios. JW NL that I just need to find again. me try to find you again. I hate it when it jumps like that. I get it from regularly. I try to go slowly, but I guess it ain't always easy. So, okay, JWNL just purchased a vintage Grundig S450 DLX portable. Do you think I will be happy? If it works well, it works great. It works great, but make sure it. I hope you made sure that it worked well, because the S450 DLX has one major flaw, and its quality control is bad. Some don't work well, some actually work bad. I got one here, brand new in the box. It worked perfectly when I bought it. I can't even listen to shortwave today with it, and it was barely used. It really, really is a mix. It could be good. It could be a really bad radio. All I hope, if you bought one, made sure that seller told you it was working right and it was working well, because it's a hit and miss on that model. Can you read the TV guy? It was quite tough losing my step grandfather and then having to help my grandmother move with her criage, and grew up making lots of memories, but getting into shortwave. At least he got something out of it that helped. John Beckham, Donald Hosmer, nice to have you here. John Beckham, enjoyed your video on Tuesday when you were out in the field. Texan PL990X receiving Madagascar 13670, France on 13740, in China on 1376. Yep, middle of the park. I want to go back tomorrow, Thursday. It's supposed to be a nice day. So I will surely. My plans are to go back to the park and take a little more time tomorrow, and bring along. I don't know what I'm going to bring along. Maybe I'll bring the CNG and ATS 909X2, or I don't know. I'll maybe bring a couple of radios. One with ETM scan, like maybe the Texan PL330 also would be a nice one to bring along. But it was such a beautiful day. Paul, nice to have you on board from Southwest Michigan. An older farm friend loaned me their transoceanic when I was about 10, 1972. BBC was the first station. So Donald Hosmer, nice to have you here. W8SWL in Northern Michigan. Ferd Antler, nice to have you here. And first radio was a Lafayette HE10, 1950s Kenwood. Received secondhand in 64. Still have it totally restored. Cool. These are such nice radios, and such nice radios to keep, honestly. Just amazing to have all of that around. What else do we have? Keegan has 13840 radio in New Zealand. Here it's pretty much gone now until next year with 13840. So pretty cool. Kimagzi 76, nice to have you here from West Michigan. No problem, man. It happens to all of us. Hope you're getting better soon. Barry, does anyone remember when Blaupunk made a car radio with shortwave? Yeah, I remember that one. I remember a Philips one that was advertised a lot with shortwave for cars. Pretty much. The music I'm listening to, I'm pretty sure, is on... Yeah, it's probably on this DSP. Yeah, 7780 is WRMI. 7780. That's where I'm hearing music right now. Pretty much. Steve Miller, nice to have you here. Yingli, nice to have you here. VE3TYA. And a realistic SX190. He's giving away for shipping. Wow. Okay. As we have, I would be interested if it works, and I would be interested for just shipping charges. The SX190, I would be interested. Write to me at officialshortwaveradio@gmail.com. We're going to work it out. What else do we have? Let me just try to go down as fast as I can. As fast as I can. Dimitri, nice to have you here. Gilles, do you use your Realistic DX100? Not a lot. I mean, it's such a... I use it tonight because it works. It works well. I mean... Here's Radio Havana, Cuba on 6,000. I mean, it works. It works decently well for AM international broadcast, but you know, it's not super sensitive, and it and single sideband is horrible on this thing. William says, my first shortwave was given to me in '66 by a neighborhood TV repairman. A Sonora, made in Chicago, trademark, clear as a bell. Wow, nice to have you here. W8LV, Bill. What else do we have? I think a lot of us, I think we got to thank Radio Shack. A lot of us need to thank Radio Shack for bringing us into the hobby. So, Steve, howdy, Shell. Nice to have you here. William Latham, are you broadcasting on shortwave? Nope. This is a live stream on YouTube. What kind of antenna I'm using right now? I got the MLA30 on it. Believe it or not. My Magic. So it's on the MLA30 via the multi-coupler. So pretty cool. Joe Tyson, First Radio, a no-name multi-band in '77. Love listening to Radio Moscow and Deutsche Welle. Pretty cool. Nice to have you here, and I've reached the bottom of the chat. So how about we end the show by choosing a few broadcasts or a few interval signals and stuff that we can find and play them on the show. So let's check out here. Yeah. Anything interesting to play here? So here's let's check it out here. Call Israel. That was one of the first, if I remember well, this is one of the stations I heard the first night in 1982 with my R1, my Realistic DX100 radio, Call Israel radio. So let's check out, what do we have here that's interesting? Call Israel shortwave, U.S. attack on Iraq from 1991. Okay. Let's just do this. Make sure the audio comes out of the console. We'll hear the interval signal, which is kind of interesting. Call Israel. So this is a broadcast from January 16th, 1991, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. So that means it was 0200 UT. Received in Philadelphia on 9435 kilohertz. I always remember listening to this interval signal and thinking it was kind of harsh.
America at the
There we
0,
go. Oops.
Les petits bots de All Brand sont remplis.
Sorry.
1 and 2 hours UTC.
There we go. Top of the hour.
This is Israel. Israel Radio, Call Israel, broadcasting from Jerusalem to North America at the 0, 1 and 2 hours UTC on 11605, 9435 and 7465 kilohertz.
Shalom Aleichem. Good evening. This is Ruben David Miller with Israel News Magazine. American officials have disclosed that U.S. Air Force bombers have attacked Iraq's H-2 and H-3 air bases near the Jordanian border, where surface-to-surface missiles are stationed. The officials indicated that the Iraqi missile bases were the first targets of the airstrike. American stealth bombers, which are impossible to detect on radar, carried out the raid. The American officials also said the airstrike is going as planned, and no American casualties have been reported. News reports also say that one of the first targets was a nuclear weapons development facility. The Allied warplanes also destroyed 2 biological weapons sites and 1 chemical warfare plant. Reports also say an Iraqi warplane has defected to Saudi Arabia. Here in Israel, civil defense.
So that was called Israel. Radio RSA, Randall Klons. Radio RSA from 1977. 1977. I like that interval signal. It was one of the nice ones to hear on shortwave.
This is Radio RSA, the voice of South Africa from Johannesburg.
This really brings me back to the 80s. Listening on this radio, the DX100. Oh, man.
6 hours, Greenwich Mean Time. 8 a.m. South African Time. A very good morning to you from the Voice of South Africa, Radio RSA, calling West Africa on 25790 kilohertz.
25790.
21535 kilohertz in the 13-meter band, and 17780 kilohertz in the 16-meter band.
By the way, talking of these high frequencies, Radio France has registered 25820 on the 11-meter band for this fall. I don't know if we're going to use it, but I don't know. I don't remember when some shortwave broadcasts actually were on the 11-meter band in recent years. It's been years since I've heard anybody there. So Radio France registered 25820. That's kind of interesting, to Africa. So I hope they're going to use it. I want to try that. Okay. Mad Radio, the excerpt. Radio Tirana from the Cold War days. I'm going to play this one here. Radio Tirana. Shortwave. And we'll have, of course, the interval signal. I like the one with, so from 11, this is from November 4th, 1985 in English. So,
English.
Oh, doesn't include, but we will play the interval signal. And then we'll play the sad news that Radio Tirana had in November of 1987. So, Radio Tirana Interval International. So, interval signal from, let me just check out the one that could be the best. Radio Tirana 1989. Signing on of 1975 here. So let's check that one. That audio is not very good, but that was definitely scary. Very harsh. Communist, let's, you know. So that was an example. I don't know if this one's better. Is this one better? Nope, that's not the one. Radio Tirana, Albania. Does this one have an interval signal? Yeah. Pretty crazy. Communist times. And then we have the terrible news on November 4th, 1985.
This is Radio Tirana. We begin our broadcast in the
And we could
English
hear the
language.
woodpecker in the background. The Russian woodpecker. The woodpecker.
Announcement. The Central Committee of the Party of Labour of Albania, the Presidium of the People's Assembly.
That was how serious shortwave was in the 80s, and the 70s, and the 60s, Cold War.
Of Albania, the General Council of the Democratic Front of Albania. Comrades, communists, workers,
communists,
activists,
workers,
intellectuals, women, and the youth of Albania, veterans of the war and compatriots.
Wait, guys. Wait, we got to do this in the proper way. Give me 2 seconds. We really need to do this right. So here we go. Now we'll be able to do this properly. Let me just make sure that this is all right. So here's how we're going to do it. We're going to do it like this. Color red. Color red. Let's put everything red here. I mean, this is Radio Tirana and the death of a communist leader. We have to do it properly because it won't work if we don't do it right. So gotta do it with the proper ways. So here we go, guys. Now we can listen to what, well, this looks like purple more than anything else. Let's put it really red. Here we go. This is the most communist red we can have. The most communist red we could have. And now we can actually all listen to this report.
With the deepest grief, we inform you that today, the 11th of April 1985, at 2 hours 15, the heart of the beloved and glorious leader of the party and our people, Comrade Enver Hoxha, First Secretary of the Central Committee of the Party of Labour of Albania, Chairman of the General Council of the Democratic Front of Albania, Commander-in-Chief of our armed forces.
Bonne nuit TVDXer. Fais attention à toi, à samedi.
The founder of our glorious party, the organizer and leader of the National Liberation War and of our people's revolution.
So this is serious
of the construction
shit.
Of the new socialist Albania, departed from our ranks forever.
Hey, Kimberly, K6YYL.
Commander of our National Liberation Army, he who created the Democratic Front and laid the foundations of the people's power, closed his eyes forever.
Hey, Joshua, nice to have you back. W4GOG.
The work of Enver Hoxha is the living history of present-day Albania. His name is linked with all the class battles and with all the victories of the party and the Albanian people.
I have a QSL card for Radio RSA on 25790.
Which our people have lived through.
So now that we have learned the bad news of communist comrades that have passed away,
his thinking and personality were always present.
Let's
at all the key moments when the road which had to be followed
let's go
and the struggle which had to be waged were being chosen, his leadership and guidance were always decisive.
Something else from the era of communism, and here is Radio Berlin, the last broadcasts, October 2nd, 1990. Radio Berlin, the station from the German Democratic Republic. Because we all know that every country in the world that has democratic in it is communist.
You're tuned to Radio Berlin International, the voice of the German Democratic Republic, with a program of news, current affairs and features for listeners in Europe. Here begins the news.
First, the main points of the news. At the CSCE Foreign Ministers meeting in New York, the GDR has acknowledged the duty of Germans to help preserve peace. The GDR Parliament is meeting in Berlin today for the last time before the unification of the two German states. Britain has come out against permanent UN Security Council membership for Germany. The United States House of Representatives.
But the best part of this recording, we're going to try to find it. The best part of this recording is when,
since it became evident,
is here.
now
Here it is.
Before,
The party's over. You had the song, party's over. And not just that, they end the show with This Is the End by The Doors. It's crazy. So here is the official. So this is kind of the guy that runs Radio Berlin, and he is not happy. Definitely not happy that Radio Berlin.
You can have 3 guesses. What the main subject of press
So let's check it out. Okay, this is press comments. Wait, let's see. We gotta find a way. I really have to find a place where he isn't happy, because this is crazy.
We want to report fairly and independently.
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
In history. Radio.
So it's right here. So now we're gonna have his rant. His rant has to.
On the day of German unity, Radio Berlin International will cease to broadcast. Germany will then have only one voice in the world, the Deutsche Welle. Concentration of forces on one foreign broadcasting service is the logical outward sign of the unity of the Germans in fulfillment of the mission laid down in the Constitution.
Take care, Christian Marco.
The unity and liberty of Germany.
Fais attention à toi. Always a pleasure.
40 years of the division of Germany are over, an event unparalleled in history. This unity was achieved by a peaceful revolution, and through the disappearance of the inner German border,
Hey, Pilot 1, Ham Bandit.
The post-war era also comes to an end. Thus, the first all-German election on the 2nd of December will document not only the free self-determination of the entire German people.
Oh, there must have been Radio Moscow and Cuba and the Missile Crisis. I'm going to try to find something.
An era which raises high hopes and therefore needs confidence. Germany wants to become a solid stone in a new European house. Peace, freedom, and good neighborliness will be the key words in the German message to the world. Which, in its complexity, is becoming more and more a community of joint responsibility. Therefore, all of us must above all continue to be conscious of our responsibility for the Third World. You, the listeners to Radio Berlin International, have long remained faithful to your station. In view of your interest in Germany, I have certainly confidence in Germany's
I'll find my
world. Transmitting efficiently on the frequencies of RBI, we want to report fairly and independently, critically and self-critically, and at the same time with up-to-date and
the Red Light
knowledge
District
about Germany and the world. We will thus be carrying out a mission to inform, to which we have so far been committed in our philosophy of programming. We want to be your future German radio station. We are open to criticism.
He's really not happy.
Forward to hearing your views.
He's really not happy about, the closure of Radio Berlin International and all of that.
About your wishes and interests for programming, we want to use the knowledge of previous RBI program guides, but of course, your own opinions too. I should therefore like to ask you something.
And now, here's the Moscow Mailbag Show from Radio Moscow from August 1979, guys.
Or the second word.
We're going to be in right here on August 1979.
This is your program, Moscow Mailbag. And here is Joe Adamoff to answer your questions. Dan Gendron of West Warwick, Rhode Island. Now that there is so much bad-mouthing about the combat troops in Cuba, and some people on Capitol Hill are saying they will withhold their ratification of SALT II, what will the leaders of the USSR do if these threats are carried out?
Well, first of all, one might think that The United States does not need peace, or that the
Does it
Soviet
need
Union
peace?
needs peace
So you guys
much
are
more than
bad.
the United States does. You see, I'm saying this because we constantly hear that the Senate might not ratify SALT II, first for one reason, then for another reason, then for a third reason. You get the impression that somebody thinks they're doing us a favor by ratifying SALT II. One prominent American politician told me, "You have to understand this," he said. "This is part of our electioneering."
Apparently told him.
Well, I want to ask, does electioneering come before the destiny of peace?
No
What
peace.
is more important, electioneering or peace, may I ask?
Nuclear war. Let's
now
go.
You ask, what will our leaders do if it's not
Nuclear
ratified?
war. The only way to go.
First of all, I cannot imagine it not being ratified. I believe in the sanity of your great nation.
The sanity.
If it is not ratified, why, there'll be a new spiral to the arms race. The danger
What's going to happen?
Of a world Holocaust breaking out will be greater.
Once again.
We might slip back to the period of the Cold War. Don't forget this agreement, the SALT II, took 7 years to work out in greatest detail. It takes a lot of time to start working on another or a new treaty.
Wow, that was something. Listening to Moscow Mailbag. So, okay. So that's the August 79. There's another Moscow Mailbag from September of that year.
This is your program, Moscow Mailbag. And here is Joe Adamov to answer your questions. Michael Brown of Santa Ana, California. Recently, we have a new form of entertainment in the United States. This consists of male strip shows in which male dancers disrobe until they're naked in front of women patrons. On a moral level, would this kind of entertainment be allowed in the Soviet Union?
The answer to that is certainly not. It is not our idea of entertainment anymore.
So there's no porn shows in the USSR in 79, apparently.
More than sexual acts performed publicly at nightclubs. I know that you do have this sort of entertainment too. But it's not for me to criticize your way of life.
Oh, it's not for me to criticize your way of life.
I'm answering it.
No naked people.
If you can have male strip shows, I think the next logical step would be, why not legalize prostitution, for instance? Why not? Why not legalize houses of ill fame? Why not? I will say this, though, that we are a collective society, but we feel that
none of that in Russia does not exist in the USSR.
Remain private.
All straight
and
people.
Sex is one of them. Mind you, I have criticized our own people too for being too prudish.
Oh God!
But what you quote, the type of entertainment you quote, I think is going a bit too far.
On a cultural level, would Soviet women find something like that of interest?
Oh, it depends on what you can.
Would Soviet women like that? I think they would.
Call culture. If you lift the barriers, you will always find a few.
Any trick of daddy?
That would go in for something like that. That doesn't mean you got to have it, mind you. Many would want to see barriers to drug addiction lifted. Why do you apprehend anyone that would deem it necessary to walk down Fifth Avenue in the nude? I'm sure you'd find plenty of adherents of this sort of thing, too. You know, back in the 20s, we had a society called Down with Inhibitions. They thought it'd be okay walk down the main street naked. Why not?
Oh, man.
To sum it up, I think there should be sensible barriers.
Okay, everybody naked. Let's do a shortwave, a naked shortwave show. Don't worry, I won't do it. I'm going to get blocked on YouTube anyways. This is for another type of live show on another type of website. This is so funny. Hey, Mad Max. Nice to have you here. Man, that was something. Okay, anybody who wants, has a suggestion of a station or something that they would like to hear from the past, an interval signal. I'm going to bring up... so interval signals, I should have pretty much everything that anyone wants. But in terms of broadcasts of sorts, that's a different thing. If anybody wants to hear something. So, just so funny. Just so funny to hear Radio Moscow saying that we shouldn't be doing stuff like that. Okay, one of the stations I enjoyed. So, here's each. This is something that's going to bring back a lot of memories for a lot of you. Stuff. The DX Party Line from December 7th, 1976.
Monsieur Biron, vous êtes revenu?
Yeah,
Ouais, finalement, c'est des jumeaux.
That's an ad. Sorry. I should have something that is not an ad soon. So HCJB with the DX Party Line. So that was one of their shows with that. So I guess they're going to get into. There we go. Okay. So they're.
This is the voice of the Andes, HCJB, transmitting from Quito, Ecuador, in South America. We invite you to stay tuned for additional English programming beamed to North America at 11915, 9560, and 6095 kilohertz in 25, 31, and 49 meters. 9:30 p.m. in Quito, the time. That's 0230 Greenwich Mean Time.
Let's do a disco.
This is DX Party Line. Listen in with thousands of other DXers and shortwave listeners to the latest DX tips and information from Radio HCJB. Expand your horizons. Listen to the whole world on shortwave radio. I'm your host, Al Hatch, with the information you need for good DXing.
Wow. That was a lot of my Saturday night listening.
I have Don Hastings, one of our staff engineers, here on DX Party Line this afternoon. Don, tell us a little bit about the work you're involved in here at HCJB.
Well, I'm working on antenna projects here at HCJB. I have been for the last,
Hey man, Max, no, on the Texan PL990X, but now I understood why. I didn't notice that the wideband filter was at CW level, so it didn't show the real reading. It's actually good.
They can build to improve their reception. Tell us a little about the steerable that you're building.
Going naked of weight gain after COVID with a weight gain is not a good thing.
This is a giant reflector.
Radio Finland, Joshua. Okay, check that out. Take care, Louis.
Supports the structure that's 417 feet high. We also will have a circular reflector that is in the plan view. It's circular. It's parabolic in the vertical plane in elevation. And this has a width at the bottom.
So that was
555 feet. So it is a rather
an
large
old
structure
1976 DX Party Line. Radio Finland interval signal. So here we go. Let's search for Finland. Finland. Here we go. Finland. External service. And we have YLE Radio Finland. External service. This one is from... there's an old one. This one is from 1998. 1998. Interval signal and ID in Finnish, Swedish. So let's check Radio Finland from 1998. Doesn't seem that far ago that all of these stations were still on the air, eh? When we talk about 2000, 2001, 2002, it isn't that far ago. Radio Finland.
Suomen Yleisradio. Kansainväliset taajuutemme tämän tunnin aikana ovat Euroopassa 11.755,
Well, that's Radio
963.
Radio Finland for you guys. Let's check out. What else is there in there? Anybody else had a... So Radio Finland. Voice of Chile, RE Argentina. Argentina, I always loved their interval signal. Argentina. Especially when it starts and they have that multilingual announcement. It always was nice. External radio, Argentina al Exterior, vintage 1982, multilingual. So here we are. This is the multilingual version of RAE. So here we go. Yes, open with media player. And here we go. What the hell's happening here? Yes. Open with media player. Oh, this is a different one than I'm used to.
Aquí RAE, Radiodifusión Argentina al Exterior.
Hello, friends. This is RAE, the overseas
Hello,
service
friends.
of the Argentine
This is
National
RAE.
Radio. Qui RAE, Radiodiffusione Argentina all'estero.
أيها الأصدقاء الأحباء، هنا راي راديو ديفوسيون أرجنتينا للخارج.
Ici, RAE, Radiodiffusion Argentine vers l'extérieur.
Yes, RAE.
Yeah, the signal meter, man, Max doesn't register a signal because the filter is 500 hertz wide. It probably can't measure enough. But once the filter is 4, 5, 6 kilohertz, it registered like really, really strong signal. Radio France. So let's check out Radio France. They had a very stylish kind of new age version of La Marseillaise. France, Radio France International from 1975. So this is from 1975, which is probably different. Let's check it out. 1975, and they had a modernized version, I remember, which was kind of very electronic. And this Windows 11 has some glitches here. I can tell you that. I'm going to use this, and I'm going to actually reverse engineer how I'm going to get my stuff. So, sorry guys, won't be long. I try to get whatever. Here we go. What the hell is happening here? So 75. Yeah, it doesn't work with that. Won't be long. I changed to Windows 11 on that machine, and there's properties. I'm going to change it to media player automatically. So change. What do you want to change it for? Windows media player. And don't bother me again. Here we go. Now it's going to work. So Radio France for 75. Oh yeah, I remember that old one.
This is Radio France International.
I want to hear the first. Wow. That was before they did that really kind of new age version of it, which was played much later in the 90s. Wow. Okay. Norway, Radio Norway. I loved Radio Norway's interval signal. I always thought it was weird that they had English only on the weekends on Sunday. But I don't know. I had some kind of focus on all the Nordic countries. There's something cool about listening to the Nordic countries. I don't know why. 1981. Oh, here's this one better. 1984 in Norwegian and English. This is Radio Norway International from 1984, which was the prime time when I was probably listening to that station a lot on Sundays.
Dette Norge. This is Radio Norway International.
Joe Tyson, if you guys want to really get all the interval signals, this is the most complete place for almost anything interval signal from shortwave broadcasts. Intervalsignals.net.
This is Radio Norway International. Dette Norge.
It was calm, eh?
Etter en halvtimes program
Norway was very
engelsk
calm.
sender vi søndagens gudstjeneste. This is Radio Norway International, broadcasting to the Far East and New Zealand on 15.225 MHz, to Australia on 17.81, and to Europe on 9.59 MHz.
So, Radio Uganda from 1982. Radio Uganda from 1982 is this one.
Service from Uganda, transmitting from Kampala to Southern Africa on 9,515 kHz in the 31-meter band. We start our transmission with the news in English. It will be followed 10 minutes later.
Well, that's Uganda. One that was very, a lot of Africans were very, very unique, and you could really, really make them out. One was, is this one the good one? Yeah. If you guys don't know, this is Radio Botswana, which was very easy to make out that was what we were listening to. And Radio Botswana, what you hear right now is actually apparently was the staff at Radio Botswana that made that interval signal at the time, and they made all the animal sounds. Man, that was something. Doug Noble, nice to have you here. Radio Prague International in the 80s. Okay, let's go to the Radio Prague. Radio Prague. That time was Czechoslovakia. Before they became the Czech Republic and Slovakia, separate countries, there was something called Czechoslovakia. And this is from 1985, Radio Prague's external service. And this is what their interval signal sounded like back in 1985.
This is Radio Prague, Czechoslovakia.
Man, sounded different from today, eh? So, hey guys, I hope you enjoyed today's show. Getting a little tired, and I want to take it easy for the rest of the evening. It's almost, it's 20 to 11 p.m. here. Hope you enjoyed some of that today and some of the going back in time with our radios. It was a nice evening for that. We're going to do another one at some point. And hope that you enjoyed the show today. We're going to end with, of course, our regular. Okay, Yingli. We're going to end with our regular song for the evening, which is, of course, our theme song, which, of course, is our Moscow Nights. Hope you enjoyed. We're going to be back Saturday at 20 hours UTC. That's 4 p.m. Eastern. And we're going to have more fun with radio. So take care, everybody. Hope that you'll stay safe and you'll be back on Saturday as we were going to talk about radio once again. And then a little more than a week from now, I'll be actually starting my amateur radio course. So good night, everyone. Cool, Yingling. Love you all, guys. Stay safe.